What if I told you that history isn't random? That every financial crash, every war, every economic boom follows a predictable pattern. Most people live their lives reacting to events as they happen. They panic when things go wrong, chase opportunities too late. But the truth is, if you understand cycles, you can see the future before it happens. You can predict the markets, positioning yourself ahead of major shifts and avoiding getting wiped out like the masses. Today, I'm going to break down 4 of the powerful cycles that control everything. Your money, your country, and even the rise and fall of civilizations. By the end of this video, you will have a completely different view of the world and know exactly how to use this knowledge to your advantage. To understand the complexity of cycles, you first need to understand the concepts of vibrations and frequencies. So let's go over that right now. The easiest visual example that I have found is to think of a guitar string. When you pull the string on your guitar, you generate a vibration, which then gives the string a tone in a specific frequency. That can look something like this. The vibration gives you a bottom here, and a top here and here. And the length between those are then the frequency. What we can do now is to illustrate the cycle. This is now our cycle. You can look at the cycle as 4 seasons. Winter, spring, summer and autumn. Where the winter is the bottom of the vibration and summer is the top. And the spring and autumn is the transition periods in between. Now that we have established that, we can move on to the first cycle that affects your finances the most. The 4-year market cycle. The economy moves in predictable waves. Every 4 years, there is a boom followed by a bust. Then it recovers and the cycle starts over. You probably noticed how the stock market, real estate and crypto all go through periods of explosive growth, followed by brutal crashes. This isn't random. It's a cycle, and it happens roughly every 4 years. First, there is a boom phase where money is flowing in. Stocks are rising and investors feel unstoppable. Then comes the euphoria, when prices go parabolic and everyone is making money. People start saying, this time is different. Then the crash happens. The bubble bursts and fear spreads and the market tanks. People panic sell at the worst possible time. But here's the secret. The best opportunities happen during the bust. While most people are fearful, smart investors buy at the bottom. The market eventually recovers and the cycle starts again. This 4-year rhythm aligns with Bitcoin's halving cycle, which historically triggers bull runs. It's also connected to presidential elections, where governments manipulate markets before voting season. Understanding this cycle means you will never buy at the top or sell at the bottom. Instead, you will time your moves strategically, knowing exactly when to be aggressive and when to stay patient. This is just one piece of the puzzle. To really see the bigger picture, we need to zoom out and look at the 80-year cycle. Just like the seasons change, so does societies. And every 80 years, there is a full generational reset. This cycle is known as the 4th turning. It's the rhythm of history, where civilizations go through 4 distinct phases. First, there's a high period, the spring of the cycle, when society rebuilding after a major crisis. Institutions are strong and people work together. Then comes the awakening, the summer, when a new generation starts questioning the old ways. Cultural revolutions, protests and ideological shifts take over. After that, society enters the unraveling phase, the autumn, where institutions weaken, individualism rises and people lose trust in leadership. Finally, there is a crisis, the winter. The system collapses and everything resets. Economic collapse, war or revolution takes place, but out of the chaos, a new order emerges, starting the cycle all over again. Looking at history, this cycle is easy to spot. The American Revolution happened in the 1780s. The Civil War broke out in the 1860s. The Great Depression and the World War II defined the 1940s. Right now, in the 2020s, we are once again in the winter phase. We are in a period of massive transformation. Governments are unstable, economies are fragile, and technology is reshaping power structures. The people who understand this cycle don't panic. They prepare. They position themselves for the rebuilding phase, the next spring, when new leaders, new wealth and new opportunities emerge. But to really understand why this happens, we need to look at an even bigger pattern, the 250-year empire cycle. Empires don't last forever. Every 250 years, a dominant nation rises and then collapses. Look at the history. It's easy to see the pattern. The Dutch Empire ruled for around 250 years before declining. The British Empire dominated the world for 250 years before losing power. The United States have now been in power for roughly the same amount of time. Ray Dalio's research in the changing world order shows that all superpowers follow the same path. They start as a small, disciplined society that innovate, build wealth and grow their influence. They expand rapidly, dominating trade, military and culture, and eventually they reach a peak where prosperity leads to debt, complacency and corruption. Society becomes divided. The government overspends and trust erodes. Eventually, the empire collapses under its own weight and another rising power steps in to take control. The United States is currently showing all classic signs of an empire in decline. The country is drowning in debt. Inflation is rising, trust in leadership is collapsing, and alternative powers are growing. This isn't just theory. This is happening right now. The mistake most people make is trying to hold onto a system that is already breaking down. So instead of clinging to the past, you need to adapt. You need to find where power is shifting and position yourself before the transition happens. And this brings us to the final and most powerful cycle of them all, the 2000-year cycle of civilizations. History isn't just about nations. It's about entire civilizations. And roughly every 2000 years, the dominant power structure of the world completely resets. The Roman Empire rose, dominated and eventually collapsed after nearly 2000 years of power. The Catholic Church controlled Europe for nearly 2000 years before its influence faded. The Western world, which has shaped global culture, economics and governance for the last 2000 years, is now at the end of its cycle. A shift this big doesn't just change one country, it reshapes the entire way humans live, think and operate. Technology, decentralization and artificial intelligence and new power centers will create a completely different world in the next few decades. This is the ultimate transformation. Those who see it coming will thrive, those who don't will struggle. So, what do you do with all of this? You stop living reactively. You stop thinking in short-term headlines. Instead, you align yourself with cycles. You position yourself before major transitions, whether it is in stock market, society, or global power shifts. The future isn't random. It operates in cycles, and now you know how to see it coming.